hire an expedite, they can do it in 30 days. Is that longer than I'll wait? We're still looking at it now. No, we can't go anywhere. I'd say the word. I have one. Actually, I don't have to pay it.
I'm gonna sit close to the cookies.
Dude, what's up with the phones, man?
What do you mean?
It doesn't dial, it's slow, and then all of a sudden it goes. Yeah, and then I tried to hang up on the person, and they're still there, and I was like, talking to behind me, and I was like, oh, I'll say it, I hope it. That's what I did.
All right, did everyone have an opportunity to pick up a brochure in the back and our mission values card? Just one of you have not seen that.
Let's set it up for tomorrow, Dolly. She calls you again, so let's set it up for tomorrow.
I haven't gone to the back.
Or you want to?
You want to come in? I'll come down with you.
Tomorrow's Wednesday. Let's do, they pick up lunch. Give her 9:30 or 11:30. Prefer 9:30. I want to put on my
9:30 to party.
we're coming over there. Fuss. I don't know where she lives. Gloria. Where's Gloria Fuss?
Victory, right?
Is it? Look that up, John. Yes. 9:30 a.m. What unit number?
May I use your power slot or am I for a person? No?
That one.
Sure.
What was the unit number? You're so excited, you got the street.
I thought we were just talking about
No, I need to go to her house.
13205.
And then people are getting in their door, they still
Pirates.
All righty, folks, I think we're right there. 3 o'clock. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for the proposed Victory Renovation proposal. I want to welcome our guests today, Kip Schultes, a golf course architect, Sean Heidick, AquaTurf, and of course, you know Jason Declan. We have some of our other staff, Harvey is here to answer some of our financial questions. It's real simple today. This is about education. No decisions have been made about renovating the course. No budgets have been set. Today, we're talking about educating. We've got a good presentation by Jason and Declan talking about the course conditions, the agronomics, the scientific approach. And then Kip is going to go hole by hole and the proposed, and you'll see in your brochure, you can follow along if you'd like, but he'll go hole by hole with changes and proposed changes. Our mission statement is, and to paraphrase, provide our members exceptional golf, wellness, tennis, dining, and social experiences through unparalleled service, well-maintained facilities, fiscally responsible management, and sound governance. And that's what we do. We have a strategic plan, and if you'd like to see it on the club website, if you go to under board and you click on board, we have to sign in as a member. Click on board. And if you scroll down in the strategic plan, you'll see Victory Golf Course is on there and about 17 or 18 other initiatives. It's not always about spending money, but that's one of the things that's been on the radar for the past 4 years. The clubhouse, we're looking at that in 25. We talk about that. We plan it. We don't just decide to do something and say, yeah, Victory Golf Course would be a great renovation. Let's start working on it. We're looking way down the road at these obligations. Does anybody want to guess what we spent in capital improvements since '05? How much? $62 million. And I think we've done it, and that's annual capital improvements, and that's large projects. Golf courses, clubhouse renovation, roadways, Grill Glen, Healthy Lifestyle Center, Community Maintenance Center, Grill Glen we're doing this summer. And you know what? I think we've always had the best interest from a financial perspective of the members in mind. I think the annual expenditures are done through new member capital contributions. Some of the larger projects are financed through Bank of America. We've got a good relationship with them. And so understand, when we talk about this or anything else we do, we have in mind the best interest of the membership, but also being progressive, forward-thinking, and remaining competitive in a marketplace that, as you know, is very, very, very competitive. Although we've only got 2 units on the market to sell, when they do come on the market, we want to be prepared and present the best way we can. Let's see. So our goal today, present Victory Golf Course needs, and then the excitement of what we think would be nice additions to each hole. That will be by Declan and Kip. Conceptual hole overview. Declan and Jason. Kip's going to do a conceptual. We want your input, and that was the goal today. Is we have budget finance, we have the board of governors, we have the golf committee, and others. Why didn't we invite everybody? Because it would be too many people in one room. Once we get a good feel and a good sense of the group, then we move forward in the proper direction. And we will do as many of these as we need to until the room's empty, where everybody's had an opportunity to sit in these. So if anybody asks you, we're quite happy to do these as often as we need to. And lastly, full transparency. You have a question, chances are we can answer anything you have to ask other than what the market's going to do tomorrow. If you have any questions, ask them. Let us know, and let us try to field your questions. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jason and Declan, and appreciate again your coming today.
Very good. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it. Declan is here to kind of give us, if you have any questions in particular to him, or he'll help support me in some of the things that I'm going to show you. Some of the things I'm going to show you gets a little technical. You are going to see it from a golf course superintendent's perspective. Declan and I are also fairly decent golfers, so we understand the way you see the golf course. And then we'll talk about the financial type things and how this is all going to happen. But we'll hold most of the questions unless it's very specific to one of the slides that I have, and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to get your questions answered. But
Jason, I forgot my house. I'm sorry. Put your phones on silent if you would. And if you do have a question, as Jason said, relative to what he's talking about, just raise your hand and wait until you're called on. But absolutely, we welcome the questions.
yeah, we can answer questions as we go. It's it's just going to kind of flow through this thing very smooth, and hopefully educate everyone. We've been working on this for 5 or 6 years. When I first was hired in 2010, we were working on the Legends renovation, and we had a lot of members. Why do we need to do this? I was hired, we got the golf course in excellent playing condition, and then the question was, man, why do we need to do this? And then after it was renovated and we started selling homes and everybody started loving this thing, we found out why we did that renovation, and it was very successful. So Victory Course Renovation 2023. Well, why do we need to renovate? Well, the last time the Victory Golf Course was renovated was in 2006. During that renovation, there wasn't a whole lot changed. The routing stayed the same. The green complexes stayed relatively the same. The routing stayed the same. It was done for about 3.1 million. They did a excellent job. New irrigation system, and the whole 9 yards. Jeff Myers was the architect. There are some things that he did that we don't really care for, some playing conditions or playability things that you have complained about over the years, and we want to try to address those. We're going to talk about some infrastructure. That would be drainage, irrigation system, greens, soil, and also Bermuda grass and the turf that we have out there. Kip is mostly going to talk about playability. I'll get into it a little bit as well. And then, it's time for a modern design golf course. The ball goes further. Landscape is over matured. Holes play not the way they were designed to do back in 2006. Okay, so putting green, it's the heart of the course. That's what everybody talks about when they play the golf course, and that's what we're going to start out with. There's two different construction methods whenever you're building a green, and it's governed by the USGA, and there's a USGA spec, and there's a California spec. We'll get into that. We'll also look about drainage, airflow, and how organic matter built up in the soil profile starts deteriorating over time. And these greens are 16 years old. Warm season grass, the life expectancy is anywhere from 12 to 25. Yes, there are golf courses up north that have 30, 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old greens. And that's really not the case here in South Florida. We live in a subtropic region where we get 60 inches of rain a year, and everything weathers very, very quickly. You see that with your homes, you see that with your car deteriorating, all the things from the hot sun, rain, subtropical weather. Okay, so the USGA specification is a method on which we build the green. Right here is the grass on the top, and then you got 12 inches of a sand base material, and then you got 4 inches of gravel, and then this is your natural soil here. And then you have this drain pipe underneath these greens, and I'll show you that on the next slide, is a drainage infrastructure, which is quite impressive. This is how we built the Legends golf course, and it's been very successful. Much different than the way the Victory course was built. The Victory course was built with a California spec green. And what the California spec is, they use this flat drain tile. And they just lay this flat drain tile on the surface of the bottom of the green. It's a herringbone design. Herringbone, you see that? It's where it goes from high to low, and the water is supposed to get into these pipes. They use the flat drain tile. There's no gravel trench. There still is a 4-inch gravel layer, just like the USGA spec. And there's a 12 to 14-inch root mix on top of this, and then the grass is planted on top. Not ideal for South Florida with 60 inches of rain a year. Great for California, they get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 inches. This is what we're looking for. This is a USGA spec green. This is good for Florida. It's still that herringbone design where you have the main line running down the middle, and then your herringbone design. It has an ADS 4-inch drain pipe. That is very key to what we need here in South Florida. That's what the Legends course has, where the pipe is below the subgrade, and the gravel is encased around the pipe, and then 4 inches of gravel is over the top, and then you got the 12 inches of mix over that, and it makes for a great draining green surface, which ultimately you get good turf on the top. Okay, so what happens if it's not built correctly here in South Florida? This is the profile that I was telling you about. This is number 3 green on the Victory course, and basically we took this tool and just pushed it all the way down, and it's probably going in about halfway. I know it's halfway because I see 7 inches here. And then this is Legends number 4 green. Each one of these plugs are about the same age. This was taken quite some time ago. But you see that organic matter that's built up over the time. It's brown. And then down here it gets white. Well, that's the original stuff. Over here on the Legends course, you've got about 3 or 4 inches over a period of time. And here's that nice stuff. That's what we planted it in. And this is the organic matter that is built up. This system underneath the grass, it's kind of like a filter. So what happens when your filter gets clogged? You change your filter. Same concept here. Whenever this organic matter gets built up all the way down to the gravel layer, it basically stops working. The water is not able to go through. It holds more water up top, and then we start battling diseases and other types of things that's detrimental to the turf. Ultimately, no good putting surface. This is kind of what I've experienced over the years. This is number 2 green on the victory course. This is a result from about 3 weeks of rain and some cloudy weather. I think this was last year back in January. You probably have seen this. We do a pretty good job on masking it. We'll put some green sand on there. We try to top dress it out and try to grow it back. And then here, when the weather gets a lot better, clear skies, we're able to get that grass growing. We're able to manage our water through the irrigation and not have to rely on too much rain and the drainage system under the greens not working properly. Unfortunately, the diseases that we do get over on the victory course are a soil-borne disease that attacks the roots of the plant and are very, very expensive to treat. Simply because it's difficult to get the chemical down to where it needs to be. If you get a little algae or something on the top, it's relatively inexpensive to treat because the chemical, you can put it right on top of it and it takes care of it. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about encroachment on the greens. You will see this on the victory course. Encroachment is when the grass from the collar or the fairway starts moving in on the greens. You see that? This green's edge was out here. Well, they lost the battle. They've already lost 6 inches or so here, a foot or so. And then you also get, this is called contamination. That's when this grass got onto the green and we have a little bit of contamination, which is not good. We do have a little bit of that on the victory, but most importantly, what I want to discuss with you today is this encroachment. You do know that we've incorporated a program where we routine edge these greens. That's that slit all the way around. Well, if we don't have a really good operator to hit that same slit every single time, we lose an inch. We lose an inch, we lose an inch. Over 10 years, next slide, I'll show you what happens. In 2006, this is number 12 green on the victory course. See that sprinkler head right there? There's 2 of them. In 2006, that green was right there, 5 feet from the edge of the green. How do I know that? I can take a soil probe and I can start probing there and I can find that greens mix. Remember that greens mix that we talked about on the slide? I can probe and I can find, and I keep doing that until I find native soil. And then I can find my original edge. That's 16 feet. So over 17 years, now this is not the case on every single green, every single location. This is a drastic example, but we are all over the golf course. So we've lost a lot of green surface area. When the greens were planted, we're about 3.25 acres, about 3.25 acres. Right now we're about 2.9 acres on the Victory Golf Course. The greens are significantly smaller than the way they were when they were built. And you can kind of see that. Okay, drainage. Very important. You're only as good as your drainage after a rain. Is that right? You guys like Carpath only? I know for a fact you do not, because we have to put up carts after it rains and you guys don't come out and play. I told you this earlier, we got 60 inches of rain each year. This is hole number 1. Now this was a really drastic rain event several years ago, but this is your number 1. I'm standing on the green, taking a picture back to the fairway. So drainage is a vital part in maintaining playable conditions. Proper drainage system is crucial. Is the drainage on the Victory course still intact and still good? Yes, it is. Next slide. So why is the drainage system over time getting weaker and weaker? So collapsed pipes, could be clogged pipes with sediment and drainage. Could be tree roots. Tree roots love to get inside a pipe and travel in the least path of resistance. And what's the effects? Well, costly labor and a decreased playability. And here's a guy that's unclogging a drain right next to the green. This looks like it's number 4. He's down by the lake. The bunker up top's probably flooded out. Why? Sediment got in that pipe down by the lake. We do find some crushed pipes and some other little nuances, and we address those as we see them. But once again, it does exhaust labor. We're constantly doing little drainage repairs, adding drainage, just to try to get you out to play golf after any significant rain events. Okay, irrigation. Irrigation is one of the most important features on a golf course. You're only as good as your irrigation system. I think I just said that on the drainage too, didn't I? Regardless, water needs to be on the top, and then you got to get rid of the water. We like rain, but irrigation system is supposed to be supplemental rain. It's very important. So proper irrigation produces better playability and turf quality. So what do we have here? So pipes break, they create leaks, and the sprinkler replacements are very costly. A lot of the parts and things are still available with the sprinkler components on the Victory Golf Course, but we are seeing some things that are discontinued, and we're having to change out certain models, and so it does become costly. Just to kind of give you a little analogy here, irrigation operating budget. And Harvey can back me on this. In 2011, prior to the Legends Golf Course renovation, our irrigation operating budget was $34,000. Immediately after, in 2012, I was able to reduce that operating budget to $12,000. Okay, so that's immediately effect after the course renovation. Man, we were really fixing some irrigation. When I first was hired, I thought, man, I need 2 or 3 irrigation techs to keep this thing going. So the new system definitely helped with the operating budget. Our current irrigation operating budget today, this year, is $22,000. So it is creeping up. The Legends course is 11 years old. We're probably going to have the same presentation in about 5 or 6 years. I want you to be thinking about that when we're talking about long-term, short-term plan for the betterment of Glen Eagles, the property as a whole. So the life expectancy of PVC pipe, the Legends course has HDPE, that's what we use, has a life expectancy of 40 to 45 years. PVC, Victory course, 20 to 25 years. Yes, we're significantly under that. I'm okay, I'm not complaining about the PVC pipe. The problem is the components of the irrigation system, the controllers, the wires, the sprinklers. It's 8 to 10 years. So we have progressively been trying to replace some of these components, and that entails the irrigation operating budget continues to climb. We have asked Sean to design us an irrigation system. He's 95% finished with it. We did ask him to design a system with HDPE. The new systems don't require controllers. Instead of wires by the hundreds, there's 2 wires around the whole entire golf course. Each sprinkler has its own little satellite. So it's a simplified system, and it should last significantly longer than the systems that were designed back in 2006. Okay, bulkheads. Well, I had to put this picture in. Anybody know where this is? It's TPC's number 17. Bulkheads are beautiful, right? What are bulkheads for? Well, it helps extend the amount of landing area. So you don't have to, if you're building a hole, you don't have to have all that slope down into the lake, right? You can just chop it right off, put a wood bulkhead, and we've done that in several areas on the Victory course. As to aesthetics, I think it's beautiful. But when they start getting aged and the cap rocks and everything become rotten, it produces safety hazards. Okay, so this is kind of what we've been dealing with throughout last year, a couple years, through the years. This is number 13 tee. This is a 2006 bulkhead. So we've got a couple we have several on the course that are from 2006, and then we still have a significant amount of bulkheads that are from 1986. Hole number 13, the bulkhead started to fall out. We had it repaired. That's this repair. That repair is right there. All right, well, we stopped right there. Look here. Here it keeps coming. And I'll explain why. I've got a diagram. Here's number 12 fairway. So we repaired it up there. Here it is starting to come apart down on 12 fairway. The repair costs are significant. Just for an idea, this one right here was around $9,000. This one was a little bit more because it had some irrigation pipes. It was around 10 or 11. So we don't really budget for those because you never know when it's going to have to go to budget and finance and say, hey guys, we got a problem here. It's very difficult to budget for in an operating budget. Okay, what are bulkheads? Explain that. This is the construction of them. Why are ours failing? Okay, so you got some components here. Here's a pylon. Here's the diagram showing the pylon. And in 2006, this is the new way. This is called a tie rod, and that's the tie rod, and it is connected to these dead men. A dead man is simply a pole that these tie rods are hooked to, and then when you fill it up with dirt, it holds that wall. This pole has no strength at all. It's just holding the boards that are running lateral and or vertical. Back in 2006, they did not use this tie rod, which is a rigid piece of metal, kind of like a rebar. They use cable. Well, these cables are letting loose. And when the cable lets loose due to rust and rotting, that's when the wall tumbles over. To fix them, you dig them all the way back, you find the dead man. It's a pain to fix it. So the new proposed course will have lots of bulkheads, and it will be built to the new specifications. Okay, so Bermuda grass contamination. So this is number 15 fairway. It looks very good. Declan does a nice job of making sure the guys run up and down the strikes, give you a nice aesthetic look. But we do have a lot of op types. I don't know if you look up and down the fairways, but you see all these little different colors of green. Well, that's all different varieties of Bermuda grass. This golf course was planted with 419 Bermuda grass. There's hundreds of different types of Bermuda. The Legends golf course was planted with Celebration Bermuda grass. It's beautiful. It's got a really dark green, it's blue. It doesn't require a ton of fertilizer. It's relatively disease resistant. We like one type of crop across the entire golf course. Not the case for the Victory golf course over the years. So what's the problem? It still plays good. Here's number 14T. It's got a lot of paspalum on there. It's not even a Bermuda grass. It's a different kind of grass. It's pretty, but it's not the one that we're trying to grow. So why is that a problem? So it's visually displeasing. It does affect playability. If you've ever played off of a paspalum golf course, it really grabs the club. It's more like a waxy leaf. It sticks. So there's a little bit of playability issues. And it reacts, from my perspective, it reacts much different to chemical and fertilizer applications. So if my crop is 419 and the label is labeled for an application that will not harm 419, I put it out, potentially you could get this. This is your hole number 16, okay? These are all off types. There's your 419, that looks pretty good. This was from a weed pre-emergent chemical application a couple of years ago. This was during the closure, so we were able to grow out of this before we opened it back up. You never saw it. But there's your 419. If this whole entire thing, we wouldn't have a problem. Every single chemical that we use on the Victory course, we pretty much use it on the Legends golf course as well. And the Legends golf course is much more chemical and fertilizer friendly. Okay, cart pass. You see it, you feel like you're riding down the cart. We've got a lot of cracks and different things. We will propose to address these during a renovation. These are costly. We spent I think it was around 50, it was between 15 and 20 grand this past year, immediately after the budget presentations and everything was approved. We got together and said, hey, we really need to fix some of these. I called the construction company. Even when the course was open, we ran around and fixed a lot of the panels. We still have a lot. Cart paths, they're vital in protecting the course conditions. I know you hate it, cart path only sometimes, but it's a whole lot better than mudding up the golf course after any kind of significant rain. It allows for play in wet course conditions. That's one of my promises to Mr. Domino is if we have cart paths all the way around the entire property, unless a cart can't pass through the cart paths, I will never close the golf course to a rain event. Okay, so if the cart can pass, other than standing water, we gotta let it soak down so you can at least play it so you don't have casual water. But one of my things is I will never close the golf course. Okay, turf conditions under trees. The Victory course does have lots and lots of oak trees. Guess what? In 2006, these oak trees were significantly smaller. And the 419, it doesn't really like it. Here's number 17 on the Legends course. You got the nice celebration all the way around. You got one tree, which is significantly easier to grow grass under, versus the Victory course, up and down Legends Way, hole number 9 on the left, hole number 10 on the left. There's 2 and 3 rows of oak trees all the way down. Well, 419 does not like the shade, so that's why you get some of those thinner lies out in the rough underneath these oak trees. During renovation, we would strategically move these oak trees, space them out, and then if we think we can't grow turf underneath it, it would go into some kind of a landscape bed with mulch underneath. Okay, in conclusion, what are we talking about? What do we all talk about? So from my perspective is the greens need to be replaced. We do struggle every single winter time. We spend lots of money with fungicides trying to keep these things going. It's a lot easier to do it on the Legends course than it is on the Victory course. Poor drainage, California spec greens. I showed you the organic matter built up. I did show you where the greens are much smaller due to the encroachment. Drainage improvements are needed. I gave a couple of examples on that. Irrigation, the component, it's not really the pipe, the pipe's got, another 5. I don't really know when you're going to start having problems with it. We do have some PVC problems where if you get some water hammer, the water goes through it too fast, turns a corner, blows it out. That's showing signs of weakness. But the components are what is becoming very costly. We talked about Bermuda grass contamination. It's not easy to keep good quality playing conditions on the Victory as we are on the Legends because we don't have one turf type throughout the property. In conclusion, we want to modernize the golf course. And who wouldn't want a par 3 overlay on your course for summer afternoon play? And that's where Mr. Kip Schulteis is going to come. And that's my report. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, one stand up, Mr. Barry.
Mr. Barish, I don't know if you have another mic or if you need one.
I'll talk real loud. I'm very impressed with the presentation. I have a couple questions in regard to where we are today in the modernization and computerization of our world. You've indicated, number one, that we're losing greens because we're using manpower, and they don't always do the same things. Technology is wonderful, computerized, equipment is coming into vogue. Are we looking ahead from the standpoint of utilizing new equipment to continue to use it on our golf course to get away with some of the high labor costs that we're focused on in regard to maintaining our golf courses? Are we also looking at the technology in regard to watering, chemicals, instead of having the water every particular hole at the same time? Technology today has allowed us, when you have a particular problem, then you can do a specific water or chemical treatment with technology as opposed to putting on the entire system. What I'm really saying is, if we're going to spend this kind of money, are we looking far enough down the road to make sure that we're going to use the best technology and the best things that's available to make this course what everybody would like it to be?
That's a great question, Mr. Barish. Appreciate that one. Several parts to that. I'm telling you, I wish I had the time to give you a presentation from Mr. Sean Hyde with the irrigation system that he designed. Absolutely blow your mind with technology and what we're going to be able to do. Single sprinkler Runtimes, different zones depending on dry areas, wet areas, the efficiency of these sprinklers. Not only do these sprinklers, right now, we can only get it down to 1 minute. So if we want to run the greens for 1 minute and 30 seconds, we cannot do that. Why is that important? Because the front of the number green is much lower than the back of the green. So the new systems get down to the second. If I want that thing to stop right there, it does that. So technology is certainly being looked at. I think I was kind of hearing one of your questions in a roundabout way, will we be able to save on our operating budget moving forward with the Victory Course renovation? The answer to that is really no. Everything is constantly evolving and the prices of things are constantly increasing. Man hours, is Kip going to do some things to cut back on my man hours? Well, I hope so. We'll have to wait and see. Most of the labor intensive things is the greens and your expectations on green speeds and those types of things. If you put some slopes on there and I don't have to keep them at 11.5 and I can keep them down to about 10, it saves on labor. Absolutely. Can you do that, Kip?
Yeah, as we said, we put out 20 more acres of water and we have to maintain anything.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that the length of time has made the greens smaller than when they were originally put in. Are we going to keep the greens the same size they are now, or are they going to expand the greens to make them bigger?
So Kip, in his presentation, he's going to go hole by hole. The golf course is going to completely change. The elevations, the size, the bunkering, everything is going to change. And yes, Kip does a very nice job. He likes to have his greens between 3 and 3.5 acres. I think he's proposed about 3 1/4, almost 3.5 for the new golf course. So yes, it's like hitting the reset button. Start out, and then we'll see if we can maintain the sizes over the years. Yes, sir.
What was the lifespan of the bulkheads that you mentioned?
Yeah, so the bulkhead life expectancy, I mean, we still have some out there from 1986 that are doing pretty good. On the right-hand side of hole number 2, it's kind of along the homes there. That's an original one. Along number 7, that's an original one. So there's no real, I have some life expectancies in here, and you need to start looking at replacing some of the cabling and some of the dead men around 10 years. But if it's not broke, it's don't fix it mentality.
My question to that is, does it pay it off to go to a synthetic material instead of wood?
Okay, so you got that aesthetic appearance is everything that you put on the golf course is not necessarily the cheapest way or the most economical way. Kip really likes the rock walls. Well, the rock walls on the Legends course are going to be there forever until we get some fabric deterioration. We would just hope that the new specifications for the bulkhead walls will hold up much longer than what we have seen built back in 2006. Mr. Newman?
Okay, is the cap rock so much more expensive that you can't really trade wood for cap rock? Because it's beautiful and it lasts like 1,000 years. So I'm just wondering how come, it's not cap rock and it's still wood.
Yes. So cap rock, I mean, it is beautiful. It is very labor intense. Like right now, I need to pressure wash all the rock walls on the Legends course. It holds algae. We irrigate water, or irrigation water is an effluent water, which basically puts algae on everything. And the wood or the rock do hold, because they're porous, it holds that algae significantly longer than the wood we find. But this Victory Golf Course, we don't want to build another Legends course. We want you to have something a little bit different. And what we've requested Kip to do is consider these bulkheads, because I envision really clean, neat landscape. Everything's hedged out very nicely, kind of how we do. We're not going to have that natural look with those pine trees and all these native species. It's going to be more like a park and the bulkheads are gonna be really nice, clean, lines, sharp, everything's edged, everything is very detailed. And I think with the landscape, having those clean lines along with the roof bulkhead, it's gonna be a very nice look. Any other questions?
All right, well, we're gonna switch gears and get going to do this presentation hole by hole. If you do have additional questions with Jason, we can do that later. Mr. Roth.
With respect to the proposed changes, do we have a number that we're talking about in terms of what it's going to cost?
Yes, sir.
Number one,
It's in
number
the
two.
book.
Yeah, it's in there, yes.
I see something.
Yeah, it's $6.4 million as we sit right now, with a few unknowns.
Is there going to be a additional assessment to the members?
So we'll get into that here.
And how long is the course going to be closed when you do that?
So the course would be closed for 7 months. We would start construction at the end of April, the beginning of May, and then we would open it up somewhere we'd probably do a soft opening at the beginning of November, and then be fully ready to go shortly after Thanksgiving. Yes.
Yeah, we can address the cost. I mean, everybody wants to know the cost. It is $6.4 million, it's reflected in the brochure. And we're going through a costing exercise. And then, of course, we're going through a financing exercise. And we're very fortunate. We've seen $3.6 million in new member capital contributions this year. We saw 4.8 last year. And I think, we still haven't finalized the financing options, but I think there's a very good chance of 6.4. The conversation has been possibly buying down the project. We buy down $2 million of it, we buy down $3 million of it. So we want to see how we end up the year. And remember, it's 2023. So if we have, if we start off strong in, beginning of that year as well. Harvey, you want to add anything? I think that there will absolutely, you asked if there's going to be assessment. Absolutely, it's got to be an assessment. I won't get into we have one that expires in 25, one expires in 28. There's a lot of other things that we have to do, but without getting into all the detail minutiae of that, yes, there would be an assessment, whether you finance the entire 6.4, and it would be borne by the 800 golf members, not the 1,082. Hang on one second.
So right now,
Stand up, Artie. Thanks.
right now, the Long Range Planning Committee and the Budget and Finance Committee have been having meetings in reference to this. We've already talked to Bank of America, who is our bank, who loaned us the funds for the Healthy Lifestyle Center and the Community Maintenance Facility. They are ready and willing and able to give us money. They have no problem giving us money. We do have, through all the tremendous sales that we've had over the past few years, a significant amount of funds available. So that's where Skinner was talking about buying down. We might be able to fund part of the project on our own, and then go to the bank for the balance of the project, and it will be to the 800 golf members. At this point, we don't know what the interest rates are, we don't know how much we want to do, but the Long Range Planning Committee, the Budget and Finance Committee is looking at that, and they'll make recommendations down the road to the board on how to handle this process. Just so you know.
The only other nuances, most of our loans we've taken were 10 years. We obviously don't want to go past the life of your asset. A golf course, as you can see, it's 16 years old. You can finance a little further down the road. You remember, was it $9.83 per member per million? I think it was $10 per member per million. That gives you kind of an idea. It's a little more than that because you only have 800 golf members, but $10 to $12.
Because I know the question's probably going to come up. Why don't we use future new member capital contributions towards this project? Well, we did that when we did the 2006 Victory golf course. Those of you who are here will remember that we estimated that there would be about 50 to 60 golf sales per year. And we told the bank that, and they accepted that. And we said we will be getting that money over the lifetime of the project, maybe 6 or 7 years. So we assessed for the difference. Well, as soon as we did that, the real estate market died, and we only had 17 sales. So then we had to assess the members again, because we were short in our projections. So since then, when we did the Legends course and everything else, we no longer anticipate using future sales. So we assess for the entire balance of the loan. What we're talking about here is using the sales of the past few years to pay it down up front. And this year, we've had, so far through today, 66 sales. And of those, 55 of them are brand new members. And of those 55, 47 of them are either golf or full members. So we are getting a lot of revenue coming in to this. Remember, we're also talking clubhouse in the future, so there are a lot of moving parts at one time.
This is a question for Jason. So we're going to close the victory course for 7 months. How are you going to be able to manage the normal closing and renovations and things that we do every year, the Legends, so we have a course to play?
Yes, we're going to do the same thing that we did when we closed the Legends course, and we utilized the Victory course. My closing schedule will be dramatically less. We're going to do it just like our neighbors. We need to close for 1 or 2 days to get the airification in. We'll open the golf courses right back up. You are going to play on some airified greens and those things, but we will be conscious of playability, and we will have an excellent reciprocal program. I can guarantee you Mr. Domino can set that up for you to play anywhere in the county because we do the same thing for those clubs that are doing renovations.
Any other? Okay, Mr. Steve. Yeah, I'm at 6.4 million. Obviously, what was presented right now has to be done. There's no question about that. When you do the analysis of the 6.4 million, how much is for this and how much is for the extras that you're going to be putting on, like increasing the size of traps and greens and so forth?
6.4 all inclusive.
I know, it wasn't know what, I'm saying if we just, it was bare bones.
Okay, so bare bones. So one of the things I highlighted was the greens need to be replaced. So if we went out there and did a greens renovation right now, I was looking at the cost. We're somewhere, because we have to do some irrigation repairs around the greens mix, coring them all out. It's probably going to be 1.2 to 1.4 million just to do greens. And so we're concerned about closure. So to do a greens renovation, have you done a greens renovation lately, just greens?
Just green.
Just greens, maybe bunkers around?
Green complexes.
Green, yeah. And so how long start to finish would that take?
Just the green complex?
Yes.
Probably at least 2 months of construction, we got 3 months of drilling, so really 5 months just.
So you're not saving a lot of time just doing a greens renovation. Kip is saying, so about 3 months of, 3 months of construction, another 2 to 3 to grow it all in for playing conditions. So you're not saving a lot of time by piecemealing it. Mr. Newman?
This question is for Harvey. Harvey, this asset will last 15, 16, 17 years. Well, why don't we always take loans for 10 years? When this asset will be with us for 15 years.
I just addressed that. We could go further on the loan. I mentioned 12. It's been in the conversation that you could. We both, Mr. Newman, I think we just always did 10 years work with a clubhouse renovation coming down the pipe. You might want to spread it out a little further, and definitely, 12 years is not past the useful life of the asset, and it's definitely something we talked about. Absolutely, no question. All right, why don't we let Kip get into the and again, regardless of your question, when as he's going through, ask questions. If it's something that you see in his presentation you think relates more to the maintenance, ask the question. He'll answer it. Jason will answer it, but please do so.
All right, thanks, Greg. Before I start here, I obviously didn't get the memo about the dark gray blue suit that everybody else has. You coordinate, that's pretty impressive. I just came to the job site walking on the dirt, so I apologize for dirt in my shoes. Jason was talking about the importance of, you're only as good as your irrigation system, you're only as good as your drainage. You're actually only as good as your golf course superintendent. I hope you all realize, and I don't say it for anybody else, but you have the best superintendent. I have been saying that for at least 20 years. Just FYI. There's only one other guy we're comparing to, Steve Kuhn at High Ridge. Steve's now retired, so now Jason.
Yeah. Don't say that around the other clubs.
Well, no, other clubs actually asked me. In fact, when I was doing Meisner about 4 or 5 years ago, they said, who's the best superintendent around here? I said, Jason Bagwell. They said, how can we hire him? I said, no. They said, does he have a good assistant? I said, yes, and that's why I added him. So that's how that ended up. But any case, whenever time we do a master plan, we obviously start with what we call focus group sessions. Because, when you say, hey, our victory course is due to be renovated, the assets are due to be replaced, as Jason was explaining, greens, tees, bunkers, irrigation, things like that. We like to go to the membership and say, what of those assets do you like? What do you want to keep exactly the same, and what would you like to change? And the reason I ask that is because, for instance, building a new USGA green, spec green that Jason was showing this picture, today might be $5.30 a square foot, okay? It's $5.30 a square foot if I rebuild you the exact same green with the edges expanded back out to where they used to be, with all the same contours, or it's $5.30 a square foot if I completely change it, as long as it's the same size, okay? A sand bunker today, if you were taking the existing sand bunkers on the Victory Golf Course, you said, we want to renovate those. For me to take the sand out, take the old drainage lines out, take the little gravel and some other drainage pipes, clean all that out, put new drainage pipe back in, put the gravel back in, put the sand back in, and re-edge everything, it's about $2.50 a square foot. But if, for instance, a bunker is in the wrong place, let's use hole number 1 as an example. Okay, the bunker on the inside right. A lot of ladies complain about the location of that bunker because of where their tee is located. For me to take that bunker and maybe move it down the hole or somewhere else, it's only about 25 cents more a square foot because it's just a little bit of dirt at that point in time. So my point being is that when you go through renovation, changes, when you're going to rehabilitate your assets anyway, the changes and making changes to the golf course are minimal to little additional cost. Okay, so we started this whole session back right before the December holidays with focus group sessions where I asked a whole series of members, on a hole-by-hole basis, what is it that you like about each hole and what would you change if you could? And from all those things, we took a lot of documentation, a lot of notes, went to the drawing board and came up with a plan that we're going to present to you today. Okay? So with that, we'll start on hole number 1 here. All right? So what we got, and I used the number 1 bunker as an example, where that bunker on the inside right of the hole is a little bit problematic for where some of the ladies' tees were. So here's what we suggested how to solve that. We're going to take the length that's existing right here between number 10 and number 18. I'm going to skinny it up just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to fill a little bit on the tee side. We'll get to number 18 in a minute. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get those tees out off the property line just a little bit to open up the angle slightly, particularly for the mid and forward tees. The back tees are actually way back here behind number 18 and off a pretty good angle. But as you go forward, you go right, and with the dog leg turning to the right, it's a really hard angle. So by moving those tees out to the left a little bit, it opens up the turn. We then also take that bunker and make it more linear on the inside right, so there's more now open way around that thing. Okay, so it's less problematic for mid and high handicappers. To challenge some of the longer hitters, we put a long linear bunker along the landing area, just past the turn, to catch those people who are maybe trying to cut the corner off. The one thing I can't do is that your victory course is, I'll say, on the shorter side. I think your back tees, I'm measuring out just barely over 6,000 yards, primarily because of one back tee on hole number 11. I think it's way back, probably very few of you play, but it makes you over 6,000 yards. So legitimately, you're a 5,900 yard golf course. The one thing I can't change is obviously property lines. And even though the tees are as far back as you can possibly get them, the number 1 tees, that turn point is out there about 750 feet or 250 yards off the back tee. While that probably satisfies the majority of people in the room, guys like Jason have to try to take it over the condo to get the landing area, or he would never do that here. I do that at other golf courses. But, so we're trying to set it up where it tests all skill sets here and try to stretch it out where we can, but this is one we can't really bend too much. So we've adjusted the first landing area. As we move down the hole, we actually add a bunker just inside right of the second landing area. Really what that's doing is to steer you away from an expanded number 2 tees just beyond the other side of the park path, just to protect it a little bit, if you will. The green itself, which is right now sideways, is turned more on a 45-degree angle, so to receive incoming shots and have a little bit of depth coming in on top of that bunker that's on the left-hand side. The back of the green is built up a little more in stadium fashion, maybe 4 to 5 feet high, which will visually separate you from number 3 in the background. Okay? Moving on to now, the next slide I've got is not in your brochure. Okay, I asked Craig, you want me to show this? When we were going through the focus group sessions, I was asked, is there any way to get rid of back-to-back par 3s, hole 2 and 3? So we looked at typically how you would do that. If you need to chop up another hole or maneuver some things around, typically what you do is you look at your par 5 and say, can I take a par 5, break it into par 4 and a par 3 and extend something else and modify something? If I look at holes, 5 and 16, if I try to make one of those holes a par 3 and a par 4 so that I can accommodate a change somewhere else, neither one of them really make a legitimate par 4 because those holes are very short to begin with. The only real option we had was actually hole number 1. You probably think I'm crazy to do this. So what I did is I did this. Number 10 is where the first tees on hole number 1 are located right now. This is just an option. I'm going way off track here. Craig knows I'm going to do this. Okay. Number 10, where you reroute your nines and say, here's your par 3. 11 is to become your par 4, and the rest of the golf course stayed the same. If that was important to any of you. We actually had a lot of conversation about whether to show this or not. Craig said, let's just throw it out there. They can say whether they like it or not. If they don't, we just stick it where it was. Okay? I just wanted to show it to you. So it's going to see the first 4 slides are just slightly different. Going back to the existing hole number 2. Okay? The only change is this little hole. Most of the people in folks group sessions like this the way it was. So you can see the strategy with the 2 bunkers right at the green stays exactly as it was. We actually put a new bulkhead wall around that green to replace the old one. To help accommodate just some of the higher handicappers, we built just a little bit of an approach out in front. So in case you're not comfortable carrying water all the way green, there's somewhere to lay up just a little bit shorter in there. We also nudged a little bit of dirt back in the lake on the back end side, just for a little backside containment. Probably the biggest change we're making on this hole is actually the tee complex. You can see a big serpentine tee on the right-hand side that's carrying all the way around the end of the lake here to an area where there is no tee right now. I'm just trying to optimize and maximize the tee square footage. Okay, because it is a very short par 3 and a lot of damage are taken, and particularly in March and April and February, we want to make sure that there's adequate places to move your tees around so you're not taking divots all in the same spot. All right. The last confusing slide I've got is this one. Okay. If you were to take number 10 and put it as a par 3, 11 becomes a par 4. Okay? Just throwing it out there. If y'all have questions about this, you want to ask about this when we're done, I'll come back to this. On to hole number 3. In this case, same hole as existing. We are able to nudge the tees back just a little bit to add a few yards. One of the biggest complaints we got during the folks group sessions was the fact that 3 green and 6 green are so close together. You can see each other's pin. There's not really much separation there. So what we're going to do is actually nudge 3 green back just a couple yards. We're going to take 6 green back just a couple yards. So there's a little more of a landform between the two. And there's now a visual separation between the pins and a little more breakage between those 2 green complexes. We keep the yardage the same on 3 because we're able to take the tee back a little bit. We fill just a little bit into the lake to get your tees a little bit larger. Again, for par 3, making more usable space. And I'm actually showing just a little bit of vegetation on the proposed plan over on the right-hand side. Maybe sticking a couple 3 coconut palms, something like that, to visually break that angle when good players are sitting on the back tee on 7, trying to cut the corner off, just to kind of give a little protection to the back tee on number 3. Okay? The green itself is in the exact same location. We kept the bunker inside right. I've also added 1 bunker long left, just to contain balls in case they're going left towards number 14. But it's basically the same location. Hole 4. With the adjustment from number 1 green being a sideways green to more of a 45-degree angle, we're actually able to make a slight cart path adjustment at 4 tees and get another tee about 15 to 20 yards further back on number 4, adding a little bit of yardage there. We left a bunker along the right, short right of the landing area out there. We took the one that's in the middle of the fairway and just nudged it over to the left just a little bit so it's not in the middle of the fairway. Okay, so it is still protecting the inside left, but now you can play straight away without getting stuck in a bunker and hitting straight down the fairway. The green itself is in the same location. The back bunker strategy is just the same, just the green is re-enlarged in its own footprint. Hole 5. We were asked to try to put some additional character in this hole. Once you make the turn on 5, a lot of comments we got was it's just kind of boring and dull going to the green. Same thing on number 16. These are two very tight holes, very similar in nature. So what we're doing is really hard to show this in 2 dimensions, but in proposed drawing here, there's a lot of reshaping going on right around those landing areas, just trying to break some contours and movement a little bit versus just a kind of a flat plane going through there. At the second landing area, we had a serpentine bunker that separates both holes just to create a little eye appeal, a little bit of challenge, a little bit of twist of the hole, make it think just a little bit instead of just getting it out there. There were a few golfers that said there's not enough of a test of golf out there, just get it and everywhere you go, you're fine. So it's a little bit more challenge. Now, the area between the two greens, 5 and 16, which is kind of a low spot right now, that all gets filled. So there's now elevated separation between 5 and 16 that has some landscaping on it, so it acts as kind of like a stadium effect that separates those two green complexes. Bunker still stays inside right of number 5. Yeah, go ahead.
You consider putting your green on the left, and sand on the left of the green?
We can. But I'm thinking, I'm just curious as to your thinking on that.
Well, frames the hole a little bit better.
Yeah.
We move back and.
We actually, we're going to add, wherever there's a little bit of extra yardage, we're going to. I gotta be real careful on 5 and 16 because you do want to maintain a little bit of landscaping back there because, what you're looking to is across the canal on the other side. And anything that I plant that has any kind of verticality to it, if that's a proper term, is going to give up Jason a little bit of shade problem on the grade. So you gotta be real careful about putting your landscaping around the back of the green complex there. So wherever there's a little additional yard, we're gonna try to get it. Yeah, go ahead.
There's no practical way to not have 2 and 3 back-to-back bunkers.
I have looked at that. Maybe if you got, I got a couple cocktails at the bar, we might see something, but it's a little, I have looked at that, trying to come up with a good solution to that, and I haven't found it yet.
Because it slows play.
I know it does.
And it's just not.
I know it's not great. You are so landlocked on this golf course. There's so few nooks and crannies, right.
What if the yard become number 2? They're making number 1 about 3.
Number 2 is like a 370-yard par 4. Nothing's going to excite you about, wow, it's a 450. It's not. You're not going to get any of that. Because I'm taking a par 5 and I made a par 3 and a par 4 out of it. Because I can't get that to work on 5 or 16. Can't get it.
The one suggestion I've shown or talked to Craig about is leaving number 2 green where it is.
Yep.
And leaving number 2 as that par 4, dog-legging into number 2 green. And I don't agree.
You could, he actually asked me about it, and I said, here's your problem, is if you took, I'm gonna go back and slide it to you real quick.
Keep it a par 5.
You're talking about taking that green and kind of putting it over there?
Yeah, where number 2 is now.
Yeah, here's your problem, is because if you start looking, if people that don't get to the corner, they're gonna bail out towards number 3 tees. You're really putting 3 tees in harm's way on the outside left of that turn. Not opposed to it, I don't feel real comfortable in doing that.
Keep it par 5, that's all.
Well, it still wouldn't be a par 5. It would only be like 410 yards at that time. It would not be long enough. To be a legitimate par 5, although your par 5 you have on here almost aren't legitimate, to be recognized by the USGA, you need to be 471 yards or more. Even though I think maybe 1 or 2 are on a borderline, not even in that. Yeah, go ahead.
And number 5 on the corner, we the trap out. You're gonna put an oak tree there. Will that be in play or how's that gonna work?
Short right. The whole idea is that it should be short of the true landing area so that the majority of people will get past that point. So you see, this turn point off the center of that key is only 250 yards. Okay, I know that sounds long for some of you, but most of you, I assume, are not playing the back tees, you're probably playing somewhere here. The idea behind that is it's short so that just about all of you are getting past that point on your drive. Yeah.
Kip, I think in your philosophy, from what I see and hear golfers, when we play the West course, we're really going out and playing golf. A lot of guys say, oh, I'm going to play the East course today because it's a little easier for me, a little more user-friendly. And I think people enjoy that. So from the standpoint of yardages, I think a lot of golfers will tell you just because it's 700 yards doesn't make the toughest hole. There are a lot of tough par 4s that are a lot shorter than that. So I think from the standpoint of trying to make the course longer and accommodate these things, it's the playability, I think, of the second golf course that really is our ability to have something different. And I think we would like, at least I would like to feel that way when I go to that course. It plays different. I have to use different clubs. It's a different way in regard to utilizing my skills in regard to playing that course.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I mean, you have your quote-unquote championship golf course over here.
Yes.
This is not ever going to compete lengthwise, and I don't care if I can sit there and find 3 and 4 and 5 yards a hole by adjusting something like that. I mean, three yards a hole is only going to make 50 yards the whole golf course. It's not going to make a significant difference. I agree. This should be a nice and enjoyable, walk in the park, if you will. Okay, there are some playability issues we're going to fix coming up, or some forced carries and some very pinch points that we actually want to fill in some lakes and make some accommodations for that. But I agree with you. This one should not compete with the championship golf course.
Actually, the victory course is a tougher handicap course than the other one.
That's interesting.
You ask anybody in this room, their handicap is one higher on that golf course.
Yeah, because of the size of the green, what is the size of the green?
They're tighter. Not a bounce or force carry.
Tighter? Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
To look at three, and if you think into a driveway left, you can go out to the fourth fairway and make 4.
Kid, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, he was suggesting using the par three number 3 as a par 4 playing down 4 fairway, correct?
Correct, and then you can make 4 out of 3.
All right.
4 is incredibly short. 4.
All right. Here, I will be 100% honest with you. My concern here, because that it was brought up at our folks group session about trying to make this a par 4. It was brought this up. I mean, I've got the tee back here about as far as I can without having a conflict with this shot or having a bail outside of this shot. My biggest concern here, if you try to make this the beginning of a par 4 going down to the corridor of 4, I got 6 green. I not only got 6 green, but I also got 7 tees and really in harm's way. There's just not enough room in that space. It's just somebody's going to shank the ball over here where these tees are. The true landing area on that hole would actually be where 6 green is. And I don't know how you avoid that, particularly on the slice side. It's just not enough room there. Yeah, you can ask.
One solution going in that direction, back-to-back par 3s,
Yep.
is to look at the 6th hole and make that into a par 3, getting to where the 2 bunkers are in the fairway. That measures anywhere from 120 to 170 yards uphill, and the bunkers are already there.
Yep.
So if you did that as a par 3, and then you move the 3rd hole back, you can take almost 100 yards into the fairway without the 2 holes conflicting.
I still have this tee over here on 7 on the slice side of this tee shot going out that way. And that green on number 1, to have a tee back here going this way, I got to slide it back and probably almost become a long par 4.
It's not easy.
You got a lot of stuff going in a tight space already. Yeah.
One of the things that we're known for here is the fact that we don't really want to roll on our ball in the fairway.
Yeah.
And at Victory, are we still going to have that same kind of fairway grass where we're not going to be able to get a long roll on it like some of these other courses have?
No, because you're gonna strip all that grass out. When you strip the grass out, you're gonna strip out the organic matter as well. Okay, so think about it this way. Like, I always use the analogy, when I was a kid growing up in Indiana, my mom told me to go out, take a little snapper, push mower, and go mow the backyard with a little bag on it. You know, when your bag got full, you put the bag in the dumpster, you put it out by the curb, and trash got picked up. It's a nice idea when you're mowing 5,000 square feet, okay? When you're mowing 70 acres, it's not feasible to bag your grass, okay? So you don't think about grass clippings, but Jason's out there mowing grass 2 or 3 times a week, right? All those grass clippings don't decompose to nothing. They shrivel up pretty small. They don't decompose to nothing. It is those grass clippings and that root mass that builds up over time, which gets that black layer that he was showing you under the greens. That same thing's happening under your fairways. Now, to combat that under your greens, that's why you go through an aerification process. Okay, you don't really do that to your fairways too well. You might do that in your fairways, but to put sand in it to get it to perk through is really an expensive process, and it's really not done that much. So what happens every 20 years or so, you just peel that layer off and bring the native soil back to the surface. When you bring that native stuff back to the surface, ball will bounce and roll out. What happens over time, the organic layer starts to build again. So 10 and 15 years down the road, it will start to roll less and less and less. That's just an organic buildup. That's what that is. So the renovation will actually remove that layer, your ball will then bounce down the fairway.
Because that was one of the defenses of that course. Not only the water and the narrowness, it was also, you didn't get a lot of roll.
True, I'll give you that. I'll give you that yeah, your ball's not gonna roll in a fairway that has a lot of organic content, and thus it makes it a little bit longer. We've had projects before where members swear when we've gone and actually added 150 yards to the golf course, they think it's shorter because the ball's rolling now. I mean, that's only good for agronomics. I mean, Jason and Declan, they need that for agronomic health of their grass to get rid of that layer, because Bermuda grass wants a soil that drains well, it perks well, it actually has air in it, and that black layer kind of clogs things up. It's like a clog in a drain. Yeah.
There's a lot of plantings on the course. We all those.
A lot of the landscaping doesn't have to change a lot. In fact, we'd like to probably just add to it in spots. But a lot of the plant beds that are there, because you're not moving a lot of green complexes dramatically. So a lot of the supporting landscaping can stay in place. All right. Kind of getting off track here. Let me kind of keep going. Hole number 6. Arguably, probably this and maybe number 9 is probably the straightest holes of the golf course. Very, very tight corridor. We're gonna combine 2 bunkers on the right, which make it into 1. That little shape that you see above the 6 up there is nothing we would call a little button hook. All it is just a shape. It's just a little curvature of dirt that just kind of comes to make a fair line move around, just to take the bowling alley and visual effect out of the golf hole. Okay, it's not meant to be there any difficult, but it is. We do keep the bunker on the short right of the green, because I don't want you bailing out right, because then you're in conflict with the tee shot coming back from a longer tee on 4. Okay, the green itself has been snugged back just a little bit, again, to create a little bit of separation between 3 and 6.
Tee shot on number 6 is a very tight corridor between those palm trees, and they're growing closer together.
We're going to selectively. Are you talking about up in here?
Number 6, no 16.
Yeah, right in here. Yeah.
Closer, down further.
Oh, these down here.
Yeah.
If there's something tree. Look, you build a golf course. What was it? 05. Trees were put in. I guarantee they weren't as big as they were up. The golf course stays fixed, but the trees keep growing this way. They grow this way. So over time, you have to thin or move trees. So in this case, if there's something that's blocking a tee shot or even a slight fade or a hook, we want to remove those and put them somewhere else.
How many yards do you think we're gonna lose on 6?
I think we could actually capture it by going back just a hair here, back this way. So ideally, probably no more than about 5. I can make up 5 yards somewhere else.
That's okay.
It seemed more important. It seemed more important for people to separate the 2 greens a little bit more. So we're going to give up a little bit of yardage to make sure we fit a little bit better. Hole number 7. Tees are generally the same spot. However, if you see between the first and second landing here, the amount of pitching that lake does along that fairway, we're filling some of that back in. Mainly for some of the higher handicappers, so they're not forced to lay up at a second and then go past that lake on the 3rd shot. So now you see it's a lot of water there too, so that we're not deemed making things easier. Where that spot is, we put a bunker inside right. Okay, so the hole will still play the jimmy out left and then a little around, but now you're not worried about those players who are playing to the pitch point, now the place to continue forward instead of laying out. Okay. All right. Now, there's a noticeable change on this green. All right. There was an opportunity to create a little bit more pizzazz around the green complex. So what we did is we brought in the water on the inside right of the green, and then took the green a little more sideways so that there's a green sitting out of the bulkhead wall right on the water level. It's one of the few spots on the golf course where we have a little room to play with, if you will. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So the existing contour on that fairway, really, you lose the right third of the fairway. If you're coming in there, it's going in the water. Is that going to continue in the new design, or is that?
No, if you're talking about, are you talking about to the right of the green, or are you talking about
on
here?
the tee shot?
On the tee shot?
Yeah. It's only the right 2/3 of the fairway that's really fairway.
Well, generally speaking, when we have a fairway that runs to a lake, we'll put what we call containment bases along the edge. Now, if you got a hard slice, you're going to go in. If you're hitting it straight, you should continue forward instead of banking right.
everything slopes to the right down to the water.
Right, what I'm saying is we're gonna level that out a little bit, so you cut one side, and pick one up.
So the fairways aren't as wide as,
What's that?
the fairways will play as wide as they're pictured.
Yes, correct, because you're modifying the shoreline out to the right one. And then you're level, instead of a hard cross slope left to right, you're mellowing that out.
And then if you, with the green, you have to set to where it is, you have water in play in front and on the right.
Yep. You like that?
Oh, I love it. Let the balls for
I can't wait to buy one top.
Hey, we're gonna cure some playability problems, and I can't make it too easy, so I gotta put a few back here for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
One of the things I like about the second shot landing area on 7, is the fact that the fairway is almost raised on the left, raised in the center, and it comes off down to mounting on the left between the fairway and the cart.
Okay,
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It's a.
yeah,
Is that all gonna be removed now for the, because of the bunkers you're gonna play?
I've got a landform over there to help you, I'm trying to steer you right, so the closer you play those bunkers, the better your angle is to the green. The further you play away from them, the more you're gonna have deal with a little bit of water coming across the green, so it's we call it a risk-reward play.
And the same thing where you talk about on the right hand side, it slopes down and away from it.
Yeah.
That can be leveled out.
Yes.
Keeps-
No, that'll be leveled out on the right hand side, yep. All right?
Is that bunker, I'm sorry, the green on 7 is still gonna be angled back to the water?
Anytime you do a green like this, it's really hard for you to show that, but when I put a bunker behind the green, like you see that picture, a little white speck back there, it's what we call a splash bunker, okay? Splash bunker is built at the same elevation as the green, actually even a couple inches higher. But so that if you get in that bunker to help support an outcome, a shot coming out of that bunker, I will always have the back portion of that green saddle. In this case, there'll be where you see that bunker, there'll actually be a low catch basin to the left of it, lower than the green. There'll be a little swale right there. That water on the back of that green actually goes out left. The reason why I do that, so if you're in that bunker, there's a spot in the green to help receive a shot, so the whole green is not falling away from you. I see a lot of architects who have those splash bunkers and the whole green just falls straight towards the water. And very few are you good enough to hold those kind of shots. So I've always looked at that saying, let me make sure there's something there to receive a shot and not everything's falling away from you.
Larry is,
Okay, fair enough. All right, moving on to 8. Not a big change on 8 here. You still got 2 bunkers behind the green. We have just enlarged the approach just a little bit, add a little bit of land in the approach for some of the high handicappers. And just to save a few extra shots, I put a bunker between the green and the lake. So if you're a little bit errant to the right, maybe you get hung up in the bunker, not go right in the water. Other than that, pretty much the same hole with some little more denser, prettier landscaping on the backdrop of the green, which you see at number 9. All right, moving on to 9. Very similar to what we did on the 9th hole of the Legends golf course. If you recall that, we put a bunch of dirt back there behind that old brick wall. Elevate those back 2 tees. We're going to do the same thing here. Elevate the back 2 tees, so it's almost a mirror image across the street of each other. This hole was deemed to be a little bit boring and dull for the tee shot. I said, can you put something out there that gives a little bit of character? Well, we want to put it on the inside left so it'll steer you away from the street a little bit. Plus, if you look at the homes over on the right-hand side, you see they're not in a straight line. They actually bulge out over there. So it actually allows me to move the fairway out to the right just a little bit, thus putting that bunker on the inside left, just to give a little bit of right to left feel on the hole. Okay? The green itself is nudged back to get a few extra yards, elevating the backdrop. The bunker itself is still right, then we have this little splash bunker back left. Okay? Questions? Good? All right. 10. No, somebody said something. What? Who?
Right
here.
I was wondering why the first hole hits into the sunrise and why wouldn't 10 be one to avoid that?
You guys can flip it if you want. Your call.
I mean,
No, you're 100%.
You don't always design, so you try to design a course, you don't hit into the sunrise on one or hit into the sunset on the.
Very few rules in golf course design. One of them, you never have number 1 starting into the east, you never have 18 finishing in the west. General rule of thumb.
General rule of thumb.
General,
There we are.
your driving range is always going
There we
west.
are hitting east on one.
I can't change what exists. Right?
But I
So
understand.
that's also why I changed number 1 and 10. If you
I understand it used to be reversed a number of years ago, and people didn't like 9 as a finishing hole, and if you do what you're doing, I think 9 will be a terrific finishing hole.
If you want to renumber the 9s, that's purely up to you guys.
we can talk about that, and before you leave today, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, collectively, on the flip-flop of 1 and 10, starting with part 3. But let's get through this, and then we'll get some thoughts on it.
9 and 10 schematics, they almost look identical. With the
Yep.
traps are placed,
Yep.
they almost look identical.
So my traps are
So we
different.
need change in that, so they don't look the same.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, I got a lake on the right.
Same.
The traps are, yes, you have traps.
Design and all that, but they're-
You have traps inside and left of that one. Now, that's a big serpentine trap that's flat. Now, that big dark spot you see right at 10 is actually a lake. It's not there right now. Well, I can make it like it.
That's a big change.
No, you're not even correct in that statement. That's a fair statement. I'll look at that. The lake is not there to actually add challenge. The lake is there because South Florida water management regulations dictate that if we fill in any lakes, and we've shown you we're gonna fill in some lakes, like number 7, the approach on number 2, the approach on number 8, just trying to help improve some playability, I have to offset that surface water acreage. Okay, because whatever we do on the golf course, I cannot have an adverse effect on the floodplain of Glen. Okay, so all the rain that falls at Glen has to be retained within the lake system, and it's allowed to go into the outside canal system at a governed rate through a weir structure. Okay, so I can't decrease that storage without increasing it somewhere else. So here's one of 2 areas where we're actually going to add a pond. There's only 2 spots I can actually have enough room to add those ponds, because for a lake to be calculated as a quote unquote lake and not a pond, the pond is just a hole of water. Pond is just a wet spot. Okay, a lake is actually a storage basin. For a lake to get calculated through South Florida Water Management, it must be a minimum of 1/2 acre. It must be a minimum of 100 feet on average in width. Okay, that lake right there is about 22,000 square feet. And its fat part is 100 feet wide. It barely makes it. Okay, it does count. Okay, the next one's a little bit bigger, but yeah, that's what that's there for, to help offset, making some improvements in playability on our hole by filling lakes in. You're gonna ask a question.
That bottom corner right there, tee box on 10, tee box on 1, green on 18. It seems like there's some extra space there. Is any of it usable in that corner?
Oh, you're talking about down here?
Yep.
Yeah, there's been a discussion about maybe a little putting green there. Is that what you're getting at?
Parking lot.
Parking lot?
No.
Parking lot? No. Tell Craig to go away. You know, I'll be honest with you, the angle here, you can't get out of this corner without being in conflict with this cart path coming down. There's just nowhere for that to move. You can see, we're not on 18 yet, you can see what we're doing on 18, trying to get you some more room and get that conflict away from 18 players playing into 10T.
Yeah.
So, but to go to this corner, I don't think I can get anything out of that. There was an idea of a little warm-up putting green possible there, which is a possibility, which could be, just while you're waiting across the street.
About 7 minutes.
All right. Hole 11. We retained the back, we call the smart card tee in the back. That little thing that makes, what is that, 230 yards or something like that? So it's still there. The middle tee is still in the exact same place, but we were asked in our focus group session, can we get a little more variance and more selection as far as where our forward tee players play? And the problem is, the way that cart path was routed before, it runs right through where you want to put a tee. So what we're going to do here is actually fill out the lake just a little bit right here. So the cart path comes more straight across. We're going to move the bridge left. So now there's a whole area to create a brand new, much larger tee here in this space, which is accommodating what a lot of them mid and high handicappers were asking for, and some of the ladies. Yep. Now, the other thing we've done is just left of the approach. You see how close the cart path is to the green? It's literally about 15 feet off the edge of the green. Oh, my pointer's working here, right there. Okay, we're going to fill this little piece of water in right here. So this cart path, which is now coming here, stays way out over this way. It drills in, so the cart path is no longer in play if you miss this green short left. Okay, just trying to get the cart path out of play. The hole itself is kind of in the same footprint. The green goes back just a little bit. There's a few extra yards we can have here. Bunker stays on the right, although it skinnies it up a little bit, so there's now more bailout on the left side of the green you see over here. Car path's out of play, bigger area to miss, and better tee
Is
stand.
that still gonna run down to the water, because you hit the ball over there, it goes right into the water? On the left side.
Oh, over here.
Yeah.
No, as I was just saying before, we filled this, if you see this body of water right here, you see it's been narrowed up right here. So the cart path is now gonna be where my little pointer is. So there's now, and the green has been shoved more to the back right, so there's now a pretty good amount of land right in here. So nothing will fall in the water on the left, unless you really rip one left. I can't
Someone watch me play.
Yeah.
During the focus group meetings, there was a lot of talk about framing the par threes.
Yep.
Are we doing that?
Backdrop here, I'm not getting into every detail, but where you've got elevation like we talked about behind number 8, we talked about adding additional landscaping. Here's one you have, there's room to add additional landscaping back here, yes. Provided it don't cause adjacent shade problems. So the materials that you select when your hole is playing towards the east, you have to be careful what you plant behind the green. If it's playing west or north, you put tall as you want for shade reasons. Okay. All right, 12. Not a big change on 12. Where's you're gonna get me on the next hole. Okay?
How about a trap on the right?
You can. I was trying, no, you were the guy that picked up on 9 and 10. If I put a trap on the left of the green, is it gonna look like the next hole?
Right.
There you go. See, I got you back on. No, I was just trying to do something different. We could do this green any different combination of ways. We're basically using the same footprint. The biggest change that we're making on this hole is we're gonna fill a little bit of this in. Just to give you a little more room between the landing area and the green, so that, players that can't get to the green regulation have a place to comfortably lay up short. Okay, so, like I said,
How's the bulkhead on that?
what's that?
The bulkhead on that?
All the bulkheads being replaced. When Jason said that you got bulkhead from 1980 something, I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of bulkhead that old. This still exists. I mean, it's amazing you would have that, because most people will tell you the lifespan of a bulkhead is about 20 years. The fact you have stuff that's 40 years old is quite impressive. Petrified. So, but really, nothing has changed all along this edge. It's the exact same hole. I just put a bunker. That bunker there is more to keep you from going OB. All right, maybe something helps you kick it in instead of staying there instead of going out of bounds. So it's not there to be penal. It's there actually helping a little bit.
Taking the trees out on that side?
Over here.
Bunker?
We'll probably have to remove one if we do that. These guys stay right there, over here.
No problem, it's the ones on the right.
Yeah, it looks like we're probably gonna get rid of this guy right here. Yep.
Yeah.
Something will go there. So I have a bunker on this one on the long right, but I'm sorry, on the right hand side, but this one is short right. So it's short of the landing area, so you play around it. You used to have a bunker left. Here. I'm not a big believer in what we call double hazards. Okay, so for instance, if you're in this bunker, you already had a long force carrier in the water. Usually a chance just going over the water is enough of a challenge, you don't need to be a bunker doing it. So I typically do not put bunkers where you have a force carrier in the water, so I've taken that out. Put a bunker shoreline, so now the fairway will actually it's almost about the same width. It may go a little bit higher, a little wider out here. But keep in mind, I've adjusted 14, as you can see, which we're gonna get to in a minute. Same thing as on 12. To buy a little real estate here, you can see we've almost doubled the width of this approach here. Okay, just trying to buy some playability, if you will. Yeah. No. Again, when we do this kind of stuff here, right about here, there'll be a catch basin. Right about here, there'll be a catch basin, which means we'll have a low spot here. It's a little bit higher on the edge before it goes down, which means if you hit a straight shot, it's going to continue going straight. Now, if you hit a hook, it's going to go in. If you hit a straight shot, it's going to keep going straight. It's not going to backwash. You only hit straight shots. What's that?
Took out the bunkers on the right.
The green, yes, it's the bunkers on the right to make it an open into the green complex, yes. And I put a saving bunker down inside left.
On the fair to the water.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yep.
Is that gonna be a bulkhead on the left side?
It is not. No, I don't believe you have one there now.
We don't, but I mean,
And I've been kind of caught.
it depends on move your shot left, because there's water.
Yeah, I mean, I could justify, as narrow as your golf course is, I could justify bulkhead every hole, but that 6.4 number will go to 8. Let's, you know. Yeah,
But then I know it's two-dimensional here, you can't see that 13, it's uphill, downhill, and then uphill to the green.
yeah.
That's gonna stay the same?
Yeah. Look, we love elevation in Florida. Florida doesn't have enough elevation, so where you have it, we're not gonna decrease it, unless you like it, unless you want it decreased. But otherwise, any contractor you got, we'll only try to exacerbate it if we can, just to keep a little more movement going. So. All right, 14, probably the shortest little hole you got in the golf course other than 2. Like all of our other par 3s, we're trying to optimize or maximize the usable tee square footage so that you can move your tees around. So this little area of trees will come out. We actually have to put a new bulkhead wall and utilize this whole space for all tees. This cart path will move out to the boundary, so this whole thing can become tees that have all kinds of flexibility to move around. All right. To add a little lengthness to what is a very, very short hole, you can see one of the few spots on the golf course where you can add yards. The green has been taken back and left of the existing green, and you're probably adding about 20 yards of it, maybe 25. Okay? So basically what you got now, if you look at it, there's where the number 14 is over here, what used to be the green, which is sometimes difficult for people that don't get a high loft shot, you know, come in, hit right through the green and the bumpers on the back. Now you have an approach here where you can hit up into the green complex and not be overly penalized or stay on the green. But it's not necessarily made any easier though, because the further you play back in the tees, the more forced carry you have. The more you go forward the tees, now you have an approach to play with. Okay? Yeah.
You're playing from the blue gold area. What's the distance from that point to the center of the green?
The blue gold area. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know the colors that way.
Back to 100, back to. That's the
back.
Well, now
We're
it's about 100 yards.
Yeah, we're trying to get you at least 120, 122, something like that.
Center of the green.
Yeah, the center of the green.
Then I asked you, would you think of putting a little pot, a little small bumper, right in front over the bulkhead there?
Right where the 14 is.
14 is.
Exactly. That'd be cool.
Yeah. It's not a.
We got Pete Down around here, don't we?
It's only,
You could. You know,
8 yards.
you know what a possibility might be? I'm gonna play a little Pete Down for you. Pete is notorious for sticking a little pot on the inside of the green.
Yeah.
Just a little one, because it's a wood bulkhead wall cutting a little window opening. It's kind of cool. We did one in Harbor Ridge, the dock course up there a few years ago. If you're looking for a little additional character, we can do that.
I love that.
It's gonna be aesthetic.
Yep. Oh, sorry. We take the lead, yeah. I know they will. You can curse the crowd here is yes.
Harvey, you never think about.
I hear
Harvey did it.
not severe. No, it will not be falling hard. It's what I told you before. When I do a green like this, see the center dot that's in the middle of that black dot? Everything from that black dot towards the bunker will actually start to fall very, very slightly towards the trap, and it will fall out to the right. Why I do that is so if you're in that trap on the backside, there's actually something part of that green to help receive a shot and not even falling away from it. It worked. We've done this all over Palm Beach County. It works. Yeah.
I believe there's a company called Green Slope that puts out a book for green complexes.
Yeah.
Shows difficulty,
Yes.
rated 0 to 100.
Yes.
And the 36 holes we have, number 14 is the only one that rates in the 90s. Everything else is in the mid-70s or lower. The victory's defense has always been the green complex.
Okay.
It's not a difficult course. The greens are very difficult.
So we have done
That can change.
Do you want to change? I can recreate you that exact same green if that's what you like.
I'm just saying, if you make the greens too easy, of course, it really comes to.
Yep.
That's its own difficult.
We have not got into the intimate details of green contouring yet. I mean, that's all conceptual. So, you know, when and if you approve this project to go forward and you want to get into the intimate details of how each green should be shaped, and you want to tell me you like this, you don't like this, I'm glad to listen to you. Yeah.
That slope of that green and the difficulty of the green is its own effect.
I can make it steeper.
We can't hold it now.
25 yards.
Ma'am, yes, you have a question.
Are you going to continue to keep the drop shop on 8th and,
The drop area?
yeah,
Okay, here's what we did here.
on 14?
Because technically, you're not supposed to have a drop area on the other side of the water, although a lot of clubs do. What we've done is, you can't tell here, but a couple of these trees we've taken out, and we've bulged some land over here. That's what this piece is right here. So the very front of this tee will become your drop area. So the carry over here is literally only about 20 yards. You know, not saying you still can't have on the other side. We've actually tried to make an accommodation for something that's legitimately on the other side of the water that's close to get to that rain. Hopefully that works. Keep my fingers crossed. Right. I'll go back and take a look at it. Yeah.
So on the new 14, where would you see the most difficult tee ground?
The team ground?
Yeah, tee.
Well, it depends on where the pin is. I mean, if the pin is close to the water to the left, it's over here. It's all four scared. You got to drop it right over top. The more you move this way through the tees, the better the angle is. Because you can be a little short and let it on. The more you move this way, you got to fly it right on the top and drop it on there. So the more you move left of your tees, in my opinion, even though it may be a hair bit shorter, it's a little more difficult. So there's less area to miss or be errant.
So is there a way to push that back a little bit so that it's just a little bit? So let's say the black, so the long tee is from the left. Can that move back? Is there any room to push that cart path back and cheat that back a little bit?
Yeah, we can go to the Publix across the street and build a tee.
Just ask. Yes or no question.
I love
I see room there. I don't know about.
Actually, Dunkin' Donuts is closer.
You're actually right. You're actually right on the canal easement here. I'm probably not going to go outside the wall here, but we'll take it back. I got to get a cart path through there, but as far back as we can get it, we'll get it back there. Yeah, I wish I could make more land for it. Real estate's a little expensive until you want to buy some of those condos behind. I can't really let them home. So, anybody else? Good. 15. All right. Much like number 10, here's your second new body of water. Okay, we almost did this 11 years ago. We were really, really close to not having enough surface acreage on the Legends golf course. So Craig and I talked about, hey, I may need to put here and take a lake on 15 to offset surface water. We made it balance on the Legends golf course, but to do all these things, we're talking about filling in lakes to make things better playability wise. Here's the second one. So there's a new lake here. It's really kind of, I'll call it almost dead space. There's a big area left of these tees that really is not used. All the homeowners then get new waterfront property, and the tees are really legitimately in the same place. Okay, the intention again is not to make the hole any harder, but just again meet our permit requirements. So the tees play in the same place. We take the bunker on the right, we break it into two and kind of stagger it across a little more. On the same line, we've got another bunker short, another one into the green complex. So for the tee, when you look at the tees, it's going to look like bunkers just keep going across the line. You're like, where's that fairway go? Because it's going to turn right and disappear. Once you get up there, you can see it's wide open. Yeah.
So I wanted to just over part of 15 don't.
We're going to fill the back. We're going to elevate the back. We're going to put some containment behind it between the street and the green.
What's the end of the lake? How far down is the end of the lake?
What's that?
How far down is the end of the lake?
Do you live there?
No, I hid it there. How far down is it? 100 yards.
Well, this is about 250 yards to that black dot.
I don't play the I play the green tees.
I don't know which tees are which here.
Number 3. The third one.
Right here?
One more down.
I mean, this fairway is every bit of 40 yards, 35, 40 yards wide. You're looking at rough over here. I mean, you have to pull one left to be in that. The intention of that lake is not to be a real intimate part of the hole, just to add surface water. Yeah.
The biggest problem with 15 is when you drive up Legends Way, you remember coming in, you look left, and look at the 15 green, it looks like an anthill. It's ugly from the road.
Yep.
It's a very tough green, obviously, for all of us to get to it.
So
that's what I'm saying is, aesthetically speaking, when you drive up Legends Way and look to the left at the green, what can you do to make it look attractive, not look like a mountain as it is now?
Well, when we took a survey of your members or the folks here, Judge, this was probably the least desired green on the golf course. Everybody said they just don't like 15 because they can't hold it. It has no containment behind it. There's no landscape or backdrop behind it. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna fill behind it and create some area for pretty landscaping that not only serves as a backdrop and contain for the hole, but will serve to also, be a nice look from the entryway looking in.
I hope so, because it's not very pretty.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah, but nobody liked this green, so they basically said we're gonna start over on 15 green.
It's still gonna be elevated?
Yes, it will still be elevated. But it has, like I said, this green's got containment on the backside, it's got a bailout area on the right, so, you can miss it and not be overly penalized in the future. Yeah.
One of the comments that came out several times at the focus group event had to do with almost what Harvey's talking about. And that's the fact that from the street, or from the golf course looking at the street, there was no separation to hide the street. And I know that comes up on 9 and the whole side of Victor. So are we gonna be doing any landscaping to improve that?
Streetscape. Jason, you
Well,
wanna?
a lot of that
tackle that?
landscape was added because as you're playing the hole, they didn't want to see the cars and things behind. For example, number 15, all that landscaping behind number 15 used to not exist. And we added that as an afterthought, brought in a bunch of dirt. We used our landscape architect, Lois Giascola, which he will be working on this project. So we got a couple of double-edged sword here. Dr. Levine, we want to open it up to make, so we can see that it's pretty, but then as we're playing the hole, we want to hide the cars coming in, so we have to try to figure out which one we're going to try to do there.
Yeah.
What's the proposed new pond, lake, whatever, but not getting buggy, it's just sitting by itself, now perhaps the largest locks.
Well, I mean, it's, just so you know, it has depth, anything that is, 100, 120 feet wide in the middle, will be every bit of 10 to 12 feet deep. So you have better water quality the deeper your lake is. The more shallow it is, the more you tend to get stagnant water, things like that, and then you get buggy and weedy and stuff like that. So it'll have a 4-to-1 slope going all the way down, so it has adequate depth, so the water will move around. Plus, it will be interconnected with your other lakes through your storm drain system. So it'll equalize all your lakes because it's moving water. Yeah.
Just wanted to throw my 2 cents in. Finally, this is my last question. 2 traps on the right. They hardly ever come into play. Hardly ever. Nobody hardly ever goes in. One. But if you could take that one and move it up on the right of the green, it would make that whole look beautiful. The 3 complexes look beautiful from the street. Put a trap there, and that's well, that's my last comment.
I don't agree with you. I like your idea of the 4 traps in a row from the tee. They look like they're all.
Yeah.
It'll look like you're gonna see this line of bunker here. Say, if you're hit straight away, you're gonna wonder what's up there. You're not gonna realize that they just zigzag around and they like wide open. No, I'll take the count. I mean, I understand what you're looking for. You want something that's pretty in the street.
Yes.
I understand what you're looking for.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna take the lady's question
I
back.
have to differ with Mr. Levine. There are women that go in that trap.
All the time.
Every single day.
Sir.
Why can't you put a bunker on the right of the green?
So you just.
So you just asked. I always make this statement, I said this twice this morning at the club, it's really hard to make things easy, but it's really easy to make things hard. You know what I'm talking about? For me to make things easier, usually means I gotta fill in a lot of water, so it's a lot of effort. For me to make things hard, it's just a bunker right where you hit the ball the most, and you're like, curse me all day long. That's the $2.50 a square foot. It's easy to make things hard and trick things up with a bumper to slow this gravity. So if you ever think anything's, nothing about this golf course, you may think that we're gonna dumb it down, and just the opposite. You all thought we were gonna dumb down the Legends course, we drew up plans for it. I wouldn't say that we dumbed it down, I think we made it a lot better, and we made it better for all skill sets.
They've been burning you in effigy every time they play the
There's
Legends.
reason.
Don't worry about that at all.
There are things out there that I allow you to curse me over. You know, there's sometimes I put a bunker there just to remember bebop.
Feel like you've accomplished.
Yeah, very much, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been going to play.
It's very, very steep. Shouldn't they be shallower?
No.
Yes, particularly on this golf course, the idea is that this golf course will have a much more mild bunker design. You may even have, depending on what Jason would like, maybe grass face instead of flashed up faces, just something that has a different look, a different appearance. So yeah, they would be much more mild in character than your championship course. Good? 16. All right, we've kind of already hit this one. I've looked at what to do on the inside corner here, so we're really not going to change much. That bumper's still on the outside right. Pretty much all the same things that we talked about on hole number 5 are applicable to this hole. Once you get around the corner, give us something that's just a little more thought, a little more challenge, a little more something out there. If you're just hitting it up there, it's just a bowling alley. So you can see we've kind of taken the green strategy for the 2 bumpers inside left. We've talked about we filled between 5 and 16. You got the serpentine bunker that separates the 2 landing areas, just to make you think of it. Just to make you think. Okay? Good. All right.
I still believe that bunker should come back. Bunker in the corner. We got more like.
That one?
Yes, that one.
Should come back where?
From a little bit. Where it is in the back. Personally, I see very few people hitting into that. It's almost not like. I think that if you brought it down a little bit.
So you want to make it more relevant?
Make it more relevant.
I kept trying to get something right in here. I drew it 3 or 4 times, and I didn't like it. I was such a hard head. Yeah. So we can bring it back into play a little bit. Yeah.
This is more to the right with the fade and the slice, and the fact that you've always got a predominantly easterly wind.
Yeah.
So it's always gonna be coming down the fairway, and this is always gonna be to the right.
If you want to make it more relevant, instead of pulling it over here, you put it right here.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for stopping by.
Because that you know what, what's your name? What's your name?
Richard, Rich. It's not important, we're good.
You're gonna name this bunker after him, okay? We have one bunker in every job that has a name left for somebody. This might be Richard. Maybe I put that name right there. Okay? All right, 17. Slightly larger tees for the middle high handicap players using up here. This gets enlarged a little bit by sneaking the carpet out just to make it bigger and more useful. I did put a bunker inside left because I don't want you all aimed at the cart path. Okay, I want you to play away from the cart path around. The cart path's not moving. I would love to put the cart path on the right hand side of 17, but you got too much conflict with the tee shots coming off of 5 in the background. So it stays on the inside. And I don't like. We typically don't put concrete cart paths next to hazards, particularly lakes. But in this situation, a lot of times you put a concrete cart path next to a lake, you hit it and go in the lake. In this case, you're playing down it. So, but I'm just trying to steer you away from it a little bit. That bunker may slide up to the inside corner just a little bit more, but I want to make sure that everybody gets to the corner. To make the green a little more accessible for those who don't hit it as far. You can see that the axis of the old green is going from front right to back left. So to get to the front of the green, you have to actually hit it a long way to get to that opening of the green. A little unfair to some players. So I reversed the angle of the green and put the bunker on the right, which keeps the bunker balls from going towards number 5 tees, and it allows the green opening more towards the majority of the mass of the fairway instead of hitting it long. Anywhere you're in the fairway now is an opening to the green.
So you took out the bunkers on the left.
I took out the bunker on the left, and I just took the whole axis of the green and reversed it.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. 18. The brand new light we talked about on 10 is there. Obviously, your teams are still just kind of playing around it like they do now, so you're working around this way. The biggest change we've made here is we've actually widened the fairway a little bit out to the left because number 1 tee actually plays off at a different angle. So we'll relocate a couple of those trees and widen the fairway out there. The big bunker, the bunker that's on the right of the landing is real elevated, has a real strong slope going from right to left. That whole thing is squished way down and made it into more of a flattish bunker that's just filling up a large space. Makes it flat left. The biggest thing we've done is actually made a much bigger approach right there. So part of that reason is trying to improve a safety relationship between number 10 tee and number 18 fairway. So those who are not getting to the green in regulation are not trying to aim over towards number 10 tee and then targeting that out. Just creating a little more buffer between 10 and 18. We've narrowed it, and then we put the green right back on the rock wall like it exists right now. Okay?
So the bailout shot doesn't go the big way. Because right now,
Too hey, you say it's too easy? Who said it's too easy?
in the existing play, the bailout is to actually go down the 10th. Put it on the 10th.
Well, Marty's saying he doesn't have to apologize to the guys on 10th tee when he hits to the 10th tee.
Fair enough. Sir, I know you were talking about how easy it is. I can make that really hard, really quick. Yep.
As a course designer.
It's easy to make it hard.
Yep.
Doesn't it usually have character?
Should be a mystery.
Running in to finish a matter. It seems to me that by moving the water, unless you hook it there, you have a dead straight shot, all the rest, straight into the green.
Yep.
Might be number 9 to change
Yep.
As a finishing hole, as another hole in the course, fine, it's a finishing hole. Seems a little benign.
Fair enough. We can tweak that back out. We can bring the water back in.
How about a trap in front of us?
How about a trap? How about a little trap right here?
No, have a little trap in front of the green.
Right there, where it challenges the longer hitter, that most people will not reach that spot, but the better hitters will sit right there, so when you see it off the tee, it's gonna wanna make you play left towards the water.
You're in a room full of guys that can't hit it past 210 yards.
I'm trying to find a happy medium here, okay? Just an idea. Here, go ahead.
The answer is really saying that that's not a great finishing hole, would be to reverse the numbers. Make 10-1, and maybe go, and maybe go.
100%. That should be
Yeah, sir.
So, in the discussion of this hole, I think it's really the second shot, the approach shot that we're
Yeah.
trying to make a pressure shot, not the tee shot.
What are you suggesting?
Well, I'm only suggesting that when you put a bunker where the 18 is,
Yep.
then that's really putting pressure on the tee shot, not on the approach shot.
No, it's an approach shot too, because it's easier to put it in the water, out of the fairway.
Okay. All right, I'm just,
Okay, here's an idea.
the idea of a good finishing hole is to have a.
I really can't move this green left because I got these back keys over here on the wall. I can turn the green more sideways. Okay, so this green, instead of being like this, could sit more this way, which means the water's gonna come out across, but I've been cautious, I don't wanna cause a reason for people to start aiming over here again. That was what everybody was complaining about, hey, is create more space on the approach.
Put a trap
Probably better to put a trap somewhere.
in front.
In front of the water next to the green.
Going across that lake into the end of the fairway number 10. Straight shot into the green.
Well, you got these trees sitting right here.
Right now, there's nothing there.
Right. Yeah, we won't let that happen. Good. So maybe we need to add one more strategy to 18. If we fill in as much lake as we've shown here, maybe we need to add an additional strategy. It could be here, it could be right in here.
No. If you fill the lake up near the green, a little bit left, move the green over left a little bit, and you have room for a trap on the right.
You do. I can't move the green, it just slide in a little bit over here, because I don't want to be in conflict with that tee shot, somebody's on the back of it. So, yeah, sir.
As a point of information, when we kind of give you the, yes, we're very interested, it looks good, and you physically start to dig dirt, and you say when you're digging dirt, you're looking at it, say, you know what, guys, we looked at it that way, but it really is not going to work. Is there that capability to make any changes once you physically start building and designing and getting into the dirt by saying, you know, we thought on what we talked about was good, but you know what, it's not going to work.
It is a three-dimensional golf course, and yes, that does happen. You know, it is not a building, it is not a building that is set in stone, surveyed to the inch, okay? A golf course, you're drawing it in 2 dimensions from an aerial level with a contour map, but it matters what it looks like 250 yards looking at it away.
Right.
So it's one thing to look at it from here, like we're doing on this picture. It's another thing to stand on the tee and you're going to see something slightly different. The angle that you're trying to attain, it may need to tweak this way or tweak that way. A lot of that has to do with just modifying the exact location of bunkers to make sure the angles look right from 250 yards away on a flat plane.
The reason I asked that question is permitting. So once you submit a plan and you get an approval and you start to dig and you come to these circumstances where you want to go 4 feet or maybe you want to put the bunker, is that a real problem in regard to the timing aspect of completing the project?
No, it has nothing to do with permitting, absolutely nothing. What I have to do is make sure that all of our lake surface areas are the same or greater. Every project you do in the Gulf, it's not me, it's either architect. You end up submitting an as-built when you're done because, like for instance, we're going to show this lake being filled in, whatever that is, 30 feet, something like that. Okay, they're going to put some flags out there. They're going to GPS that line based on how that looks from 250 yards away. I might move that line 5 or 10 feet to make it look right or play right or function right. Okay, we submit an as-built at the end, but that is normal and typical.
Well, the reason I say that is because we have a lot of different opinions on what things look like. So there's still that opportunity for people to get that little personalized situation in there to say, I think if we look at it, we can do it. Not personalized, but we have like Richard's bunker out there. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Kim, why don't you explain, that's a good question, but we can't go back out on the course and start redesigning.
Right.
Kim's gonna give you, the three-dimensional. Number 8 tee box was a really good example there. Remember on Legends?
Yeah.
It was relatively flat. And boy, wouldn't this look nice? And so
We're
we
elevated,
had, budget finance in the Gulf and the board, we looked at it and we raised it up about
7, 8 feet, something like that,
7, 8
yeah.
feet. But yeah, he's gonna design a pretty much turnkey and you can imagine the whole group going out on the course and saying, hey, what do you think of this?
Look, I mean, this design is an opinion, we all have one, we all have a different one. I mean, my job is to try to take all of your opinions from left and right and try to wind them into one ball that hopefully makes you all happy. I will not make every individual happy on every individual whole, but I'm trying to take all of your comments and all your interests, wind into one plan that works for the masses. Yeah.
I think that the way you have a team design, the majority of the people who say.
Yes, sir.
I don't think these.
Yeah. This course is not a walk in the park. Okay? People who come here see the length of the course, etc., and then they play it and they find it very difficult.
It is small.
Why? If you can't hit the ball very straight,
That's right.
you are screwed.
That's right.
Okay?
That is any golf course, by the way.
There are courses that are really, really wide.
Yeah.
This course is extremely narrow. If you don't know where it is a very difficult color.
You're 100% right. It's very small footprint of land.
In the South County League, we have never lost a match, never came close to losing a match on this course. Because it's not a walk in the park.
Right.
Maybe for a single digit golfer, which there are very few here, maybe 9 or 10, it's a lot easier than Legends. But for the population of people here, it's so easy.
Right.
Not so easy. So, it's something like it's a walk in the park. It's no walk in the park, maybe for single digit golfers, but not for, the mass population.
Sure. Understood. Understood. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is there a variety of sand products available? After we start to mow the Brisbane and right over my drain, the sand oftentimes gets very compact and very hard.
Did you say sand?
Sand.
Grass.
Different textures, yes.
Different textures.
Sand, because when we get overnight rain,
Yeah.
sand acts down very hard.
Yep. I always say there's 2 things you cannot satisfy members on the golf course. The placement of tees and the firmness of bunker sand. Okay, because a lot of good players like really firm bunker sand. A lot of left players like it soft so they get a club through it. Finding the happy medium is, I'm sure Jason does a fine tuning of making sure what mechanical equipment he's using, whether he wants to dig in and make it soft or just skim the top to keep it firm. And after rain, it does pack in a little bit. Sometimes you got to loosen it up just a little bit. That's That's Jason, you want to answer that? Or?
Yeah, well, there are different types of sand that we could purchase for the golf courses. But it's absolutely how we're maintaining the green. It's not the rain that you got overnight that's compacted and then. Some like it firm, some like it soft. We're trying to please 800 golfing members. Everybody likes it different. I'm doing what Kip is doing. He's trying to satisfy everybody with the design. I'm trying to satisfy everybody with a particular playing condition. A couple comments I've already heard today is the bunkers and how they look. We'll try to cater to that. I've heard that you would rather have a fast, firm golf course. Some like lush green.
No. Firm, fast golf course. I think the defense of the golf course, being that it's so short, is that it's not firm.
You don't get scared.
Okay.
Okay, we don't get carried here, and that makes this course much more difficult. And
The place longer than it is.
yeah, it plays longer than it is, that's good.
The grass that we're intending to use, are we using the same grass on this golf course as we're using on Legend, same grass? and
Yes, sir.
same
Yes.
grass?
Yes.
Both the same.
Yes.
Celebration. So we now will be able to, when we get comfortable with playing, like we're comfortable playing Legend, we go over to Victory, and it's a completely different feel to what's going on with the golf ball and the roll and everything else. They'll match each other because we're using the same grass.
You decided to use the same turf, yes. And that's really, that's actually easier on maintenance, right, to try to keep the two golf courses separate, because I would imagine Jason's very careful about not transferring one type of grass to the other golf course.
No, I think that's probably one of the most important reasons to renovate the golf courses, to make them
Consistency.
so they're consistent with each other.
Right.
I mean, that's why everybody complains about the bunkers, they, only for the consistency.
I know you got a question. No more questions. Anybody else? Yeah.
What's an idea of where you put the concrete tee boxes?
We're actually gonna do that right after this meeting. I literally have a plan right here that Craig and I and Jason are gonna look at and try to mark this up. We made a stab at it, and I just wanna get them comfortable where those things are at. So we're actually gonna do this right after this meeting, lay this thing out. That's actually our intention after the meeting. Yeah.
Are that going to add to the cost of this course in any substantial way? The par three overlay?
The only thing you're gonna have, when you do a par three overlay, all you're gonna take is your par fours and par fives and add additional tee. Your par threes are already par threes. So you're gonna have 14 holes, you're gonna have 14 basically new tees. They're gonna cost you about $1,000 a piece. Tees are cheap. Tees are cheap. It's not, you're spending $14,000 to have a par three course inside of your regulation golf. Anything else? Now I'm gonna turn it back over to Jason.
Thanks, Kip. Any other questions? Before you leave, I'm kind of interested to hear your opinion on the flip-flop of the holes. By a show of hands, who likes the potential of flip-flopping 1 and 10? Raise your hands high. No, it would be 6, 4, 3.
Oh, flip-flopping.
Flip-flopping 1 and 10. Okay. Who doesn't like it? Okay. Would have to be split, huh? No. Okay. What other questions do you have? We touched on the financing and the cost of it. Yes, sir.
Flipping them is meaningless because when we go out and play in the morning, we go out on 10, we go on at 10. That is true.
No, but flipping those gave you two different holes.
Yeah, but it gives us the same problem as looking in the sun.
No,
Someone's gonna have to look in the sun.
It wasn't really, was the rationale to flip them because you didn't want them going on number 1 and.
No, the whole thought behind that was you all didn't want 2 back-to-back par threes.
Right, yeah, that had nothing to do with
And
the
I was trying to
sun.
figure out where that could be made, that was the best place to do it.
All right, well, what other questions do you have? Kip, myself, Harvey, Declan, Jason, anything at this point? All right, so the next step, if you have any comments, shoot me an email, any other thoughts? What's your overall thoughts on moving forward? Is there any opposition? Yes, sir.
I think Kip did an excellent job of listening to what the groups had to say and incorporating what we wanted to do. And I think the only thing that was not addressed and probably maybe just can't be addressed is the 2-3 issue.
Sure.
That's probably the only thing. He's talked about framing the court, all the par threes, to give it a beautification look. He's addressed all the areas where we were worried about, the way holes are sliding, the 15 hole.
Right, right. So you know what, take a look at the brochure because it gives you an idea of what other courses are doing, what they're paying to do. And it also gives you an idea of what I think the average acreage is in there, isn't it, Jason?
Yes, sir.
Average acreage of a forest floor is 160, is that what it was, 160?
The average golf course probably has 110 acres of turf.
70. So anyways, just as a point of information. All right, folks, if there's not, oh yeah, Mr. Feldman.
I just have 2 quick questions.
Yes, sir.
One, what is the timeline for us to be able to start in 2023? In other words, when was contracts be signed and the like? And the second one is, assuming for whatever reason we decide, maybe for financial reasons or the like, that we want to postpone this, in your opinion, how much more will that increase the overall cost? Right now, we anticipate it costing $6.4 million. 2 years from now, if we started, how much more will it be?
When I answer this, it's going to take me a second to answer this one. COVID made the golf business quite healthy a couple of years ago. It's one thing we could do while COVID was going on. As I say, politics made Florida quite healthy. Okay, a lot of people moving into Florida, a lot of people spending a lot of money on jacking up real estate. And it's the people coming in from the Northeast who are spending lots of money here, and they all want to join a club. It's not like we can build 10 more clubs. So, everybody's doing well financially. What that's done in our business in golf course design and construction, and particularly redesign, everybody wants to do a project in 2023. Okay? There are so many projects planned for 2023 now because everybody's flush with cash. Right? There's not enough contractors and materials and suppliers to handle it. It's why, assuming you okay this project, we're going to bid actually very soon, in 5 to 6 months before we normally would, so that A, you can guarantee you get a contractor, you get the right contractor, and then you can order materials in a timely fashion because there's material problems all over everything right now. Okay, when you put an order in for pipe, 2 years ago, you got your pipe 2 weeks from now. You put your order in for pipe right now, you get it 4 months from now. Okay, everything's backlogged, and until whether it be interest rates or the economy changes, whatever, we're just in a race to get everything lined up in time, and you're racing far in advance. So if you approve this project in the near term, we will actually want to go to bid very, very soon. Now, that doesn't mean you have to you're not going to sign your contract up for at least 6 to 8 to 10 or 12 weeks because you're for that bidding process. But once you do, he's going to want to order materials because, like I said, there's a big delay in getting materials right now. So you have a little bit of time to make this decision. The budget that I gave you is based on the price of projects that are under construction right now in the summer of 2022. And yes, they're moving all over the board right now. It's really, really hard to predict. That number changes daily right now. But I will also tell you, I don't know that it can go much higher because, things are getting ridiculous right now. Things are getting pricey right now. So,
but you don't think if we delay, the price is going to come down? If you think it'll probably go up?
if I had a crystal ball, I'd make a lot of money. I don't. I can only tell you what I know today. And right now, the demand is through the roof. Will that change in 12 months? I don't know. But you don't have to say, red or stop or go right now. But I would say within the next 2 or 3 months.
Can you tell us at the original meeting that over the last 2 years, the price to do what you're doing has gone up between 17 and 22.5%?
I'm pushing 25 now.
Okay, so that answers your question.
Year over year. Year over year.
Yeah, that's what you told us.
Year over year. It's just the whole industry. That's almost everything. Everything in life right now is going through the roof. Yeah. All right, thank you all.
Pretend.